Hey, Being at Work listeners, welcome back to another episode, the podcast where we explore the messy, meaningful, and human side of leadership. And today's guest brings a powerful reminder. Our people are not machines. They are human beings, growing, evolving, and shaped by life both in and out of work. Louonna Kachur is the Global Director of Human Resources for EnerSys, and she joins us to share a perspective that she's been sitting with recently. We leave people where we left them. Think about that. How often do we assume that someone is exactly who they were the last time we saw them? But people change, life happens, experiences help us grow. And when we forget that, we miss the opportunity to see something new in someone. Louonna's insights are deeply human. I have so much respect and am so eager to bring this conversation to you today. Shaped not only by her professional experiences, but also by the lessons that she learns as a mom from her kids, Drew and Margot, who you will hear about. From asking thought-provoking questions like, what do you do with a public platform, to choosing between being coached by Tony Dungy or Bobby Knight, Louonna reminds us that leadership is personal and growth is constant. So let's dive into this candid and thoughtful conversation. Louonna, welcome to the show.
Hi, Andrea. It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you're here. I can't believe that I've had a leadership podcast since 2019 and you haven't been a guest yet. Because you're doing such great work, and you do very much focus on the human aspect of leadership and business.
You're right. I do try to sort of bring professional and personal both into my life. And so I'll tell you I've been chewing on this idea for some time and really trying to make it a practice in sort of what I do, in making sure that I'm not freezing folks and that I'm having real and honest and sort of straightforward conversations. This came about, Drew is young, but he is not little, if that makes sense. So he just turned 20 this week. And so he's young, but he's way bigger than I am at this point. But when Drew was in the first grade, I remember going to the grocery store with him and just grocery shopping, right? Like picking up avocados and oranges and apples and et cetera. And Drew freezes in place and his little eyes get huge. And he goes, "Mommy, that's my teacher." And I'm like, "Oh, Mrs. Luther, how lovely to see her at the grocery store." So we walk over and I'm sort of pulling his hand and he's just got this look on his face like, it's Mrs. Luther. And so we stop and say hi, and Mrs. Luther looks at Drew and she goes, "Hey buddy, how are you?" And he goes, "What are you doing here?" And she goes, "Well, same as you, grocery shopping, picking out things for my family." And he goes, "You have a family?" She's like, "Well, yeah, I have a family. I have these kids that I take care of. I go home to my husband. I have a house." And Drew, very confused, looks at her and goes, "Well, why aren't you at school waiting for me to get there?" And it was very cute. And she was like, "Oh, I'll be there on Monday. I'm going to meet you there, right?" But what I realized in that moment was Drew had physically frozen her in place. Mm-hmm. Drew had said, "Oh, my teacher is just waiting at school right where I left her, and she just hangs out and waits for Drew Kachur to come back to school," right? And it's funny, as I reflect on that, I think, oh, well, how silly. As an adult, I know you're not at the restaurant where I saw you when we had lunch last time. So an adult wouldn't do that. How silly, Louonna, to even think it. But then if you sort of go back and reflect and think about conversations you're going to have, how often do you go, last time I talked to that person, they were a little sassy, or they were a little upset, or they were a little mad. Oh no, I better roll into this conversation with sort of that same level of energy. Or, oh no, they might be a little upset with me, or they might be sort of stuck where I left them emotionally, maybe not physically, well, hopefully not physically, but emotionally, or even from a personality perspective. And I feel like if I do that, I miss the whole of the human. I miss the person in front of me and everything about them. They might have kids, they might have dogs, they might have worries, they might have gotten a car accident last week. I missed the opportunity to have a real conversation because now I've decided for them and I'm watching for cues for how they're going to behave instead of how they really show up. And so I've really been sort of reflecting and trying to practice that in my own life. Again, I know it's a silly story, but kids physically freeze someone, I would argue that we all freeze people in different ways.
Yes, I love this concept. You say we leave people where we left them. And even the like not freezing folks, recognizing that they are dynamic human beings and we don't know what's happening outside of this one moment in time that we have frozen them in. How do you see that show up in the workplace? As the head, as a global head of HR, no doubt you've seen people being frozen all the time.
Yes. It almost makes my teeth hurt. You know, when you like chew on a brownie and your teeth hurt in the back? It's like, but someone will come in and say, like a manager will come in and say, hey, this employee is difficult, or this employee is anything. It can be something positive too. Like, oh, this employee like always knocks it out of the park. And I feel like we then put people in packages or put them in boxes where what if someone has an off day, or what if someone's afraid to ask questions because now they always knock it out of the park, and you're putting them in a space where it's not even comfortable to come forward and say, you know what, I need someone else to talk this through with because I'm not sure I can do it. The other place that it really, really upsets me is when someone decides they're going to leave because either they can't grow or they can't develop because we've locked them into this picture we have of them 3 or 5 or 7 years ago, and they think it will be easier to leave and go somewhere else than to actually break out of that box that I've been put into, right?
Yes.
And so when we're having the conversations at work, I really try to sort of stop and figure out what are the things, like, why does this person have this reputation? And is it based on anything that's recent? Can you give me examples? Mm-hmm. Or is this an old narrative that you're just carrying around and it's not benefiting you or the person anymore? And so how do we start to create a different story around them and make it a different conversation?
Yeah, there's so much grace in that. It goes back to like the seeing the whole person. And I think if we each think about ourselves in relationship, it's really easy to see the evolution and growth. I mean, think about, you and I have both been in the workforce for just a few years.
Couple.
I think about my first leadership experience in the early 2000s. I had no idea what I was doing.
Yes.
And the interactions and, gosh, the growth I've experienced since then, and how I would approach that situation so much differently. I mean, we would all say something similar, wouldn't we? So of course. So why do you think we assume lack of evolution in others? What's driving that? Where does that come from?
It's a super interesting question, isn't it? And what's also interesting is that we don't assume it in ourselves. I know that I have grown and evolved and changed. And so I know I'm going to come into that conversation a different person. So why do I assume someone else is coming back in the way that they are?
Yeah.
I actually think it's easier. I think your mental model is, oh, well, this is how they were. And so that's how they're going to hop back in. And you really have to challenge yourself to say, well, wait, like a lot of life has happened. A lot of time has passed. And if they assume I'm hopping in the same person that I was, what would that look like for them? And so if you sort of flip the narrative and say, what are they expecting from me? Is that correct? And if the answer is no, well, then why in the world would you expect that answer is still true for them?
Oh, that's good.
Kind of just flip it in my head and think about how I'm feeling about that incident, and then assume that they have evolved and grown as well.
Yeah, so it takes thoughtfulness, doesn't it? I often say that we are all walking around as the lead character in our own stories. So this concept you've been sitting with fits in nicely to that, because in my story, then I make up all kinds of things about people and I cast them as a character.
Yes.
And if the character isn't transforming, years could pass and I would expect the same. I was on a board with a woman many, many years ago, and she was the treasurer of the board. And she just like ghosted us and really left us in a tough spot. And we had lots of challenges navigating that. So just a couple of years ago, I ran into her and I found myself with all this animosity and all this frustration. And there I was freezing her, right?
Yes.
And fortunately, I got to collaborate with her on something, and I realized, like, oh my gosh, she's really great. I have no idea what was going on in her life at that time. I mean, maybe she had something personal that popped up. I suspect there are lots of people that feel ghosted by me at some point in their career.
And you had the opportunity to then sort of go back and correct that. You no longer have her
Right.
frozen in time, right? Like it's
Right.
now you have a very human connection with her and a
Ugh,
human interaction that allows both of you to grow and change. It's super cool.
it is cool.
I sometimes think when I'm getting ready to have a conversation with someone, especially if it's sort of a charged or heated conversation, I'll start it with the story I'm telling myself is X. And so then it doesn't become about like what I think or how I feel or how mad or angry or emotion it is. Like I want them to acknowledge that this is my story and tell me if that's the version of the story that they have as well, or if they're telling themselves a different story. And I feel like then it allows us to have a conversation about something that happened without saying, I feel or you did or et cetera. It's just, this is the story I'm telling myself. Help me understand how that's wrong or might be adjusted somehow.
Oh, and we don't have to believe that story. It's just a story.
Right? It's made up.
Such great language. Yeah.
Right?
Such great language. Very Brene Brown like of you. The
Well,
story
thank
I'm
you.
telling myself is. Well, thank goodness for this little situation with Drew that has created so much insight. And you told me recently that this is just something that you have been really sitting with, this idea. Is there something like that came up for you in your life? Like why do you think right now this is something that you're processing?
I can't say that there's anything specific that came up or that I was like, oh, like this is an example of that. I think it's sort of been a theme kind of throughout my life. I could tell you sort of like how I've felt frozen and then I've had to sort of thaw out and move on.
Oh,
And so,
that's good.
and I think you'll relate to this as well. In the workplace, prior to having kids, I would go into work and honestly, Andrea, I just wasn't empathetic. Like life happens to everyone. Like you've got kids, I don't. That doesn't mean your challenges are harder or worse than mine. It just means like get to work on time, right? And so little Louonna was not at all empathetic to people who had kids. And so over time, and so if someone who had met me then, they would have said, oh my gosh, she's so driven. But she's just so hard and she doesn't understand. And they would have been right. Like it would have absolutely been true. And so then I sort of evolve and mature and grow and get some experience and have my own kiddos and a family. And what I realized is not that they didn't want to get to work on time, that they had all of these other competing priorities and we all get to sort of work through and balance those things, right? And so if someone had me frozen there, like they probably wouldn't like me very much and I wouldn't be very relatable. And now I think I've become this empathetic, relatable grown-up who understands the challenges and choices that we all have to make kind of as we go through those situations. And so I often reflect on at what point did I meet someone and what would they think about me at that point? And which parts of that are accurate and which parts are inaccurate. Not that I have to change it. It helps me measure my own growth and my own sort of journey as I've gone through my professional life and realized that, oh my gosh, like I can see changes and I can see markers where of course I've grown. And isn't it fascinating to hear other people's growth stories too, and to understand what was pivotal in their journey and what helped them overcome that? I just think that's super cool to think about.
Well, and I love thinking about it as thawing out. It is part of transforming and changing, and there's a growth orientation in that. I mean, how did you recognize that? Was it through feedback? Was it through your own growth? Like, how did you come to realize, like, oh gosh, there's a error?
I tend to do a lot of journaling is A, and then B, I tend to be reflective and internal in that way anyway. So I do a lot of running, I do a lot of hiking, I do a lot of journaling. And I'm not a person who just writes things down. I don't know if this is a good or a bad comment, but I'm not a person who just writes things down. If I'm really chewing on something or if I feel like something's going to keep gnawing at me, I'll write it down and then I'll put that date on my calendar. And so I'll say, okay, Louonna, like 60 days out, like I was working on this really like hard thing. It was emotionally taxing. It was like draining me physically. I couldn't sleep. I write it down, and then putting it on my calendar and saying, hey, go back and read that in 60 days allows me to let it go. I'm not going to forget. Like, I've done all of the worrying I need to. I can't. And so then when that date comes, going back, I have to do two things. I have to go back and read it. And then I have to write a new journal entry about how I felt, how I now feel about that thing. And what it's shown me over time is that, Andrea, like every single time I feel different about that thing, or that thing has resolved completely, it wasn't worth my time of worrying at all. And so I think like sort of through the process of journaling and reflecting back on purpose and then reflecting forward, it's allowed me to sort of see growth in myself over time and recognize that all people probably go through similar journeys. They probably don't journal it like I do.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I want to talk more about reflecting forward. This is fascinating to me because I get the concept of journaling, but I've always thought about journaling in the present moment. And what you're doing is you're casting a vote for this future version of you.
Yes.
It's future forward journaling.
Gosh, when I was in college, I used to do traditional journaling, just write everything down, right? But what I realized was, for me, so what? Like, it wasn't, all it was doing was creating catharsis at the time. Like, just like running might, or yoga might, or meditation might. But the real learning for me comes from then reflecting back and then realizing how I grew and how I'm going to play that going forward, right? So if I could take out that middle part or that early, like, worrying, churning about it, and just get to the end faster and realize, oh my gosh, like, this is a pattern that I've seen, and I can break that pattern and get through it faster by recognizing early that it's a pattern.
Yeah. And so that really helps you to see those patterns. They jump out at you in that. That is so great. Reflective journaling. Yeah. I've never thought about journaling in that way. I get a lot of energy thinking about the future. And so journaling has not something that's been energizing to me until right now. Louonna, I am going to take on this because I love when at the end of every year, thinking about the next year, setting my goals. I always go out 10 years into the future and write about and that gives me a ton of energy.
We'll have to reflect on that when you do it. Like, it's been super helpful for me. And the other thing that you have to be is super intentional about your timeline, right? And so I'll journal like on really, really tough things. Like there are Tuesday problems. I call them Tuesday problems. And with my kids, I've seen this, right? They're like, oh my gosh, this test tomorrow, this thing. And I'm like, that's a Tuesday problem. Like, let's worry about it on Tuesday, but then you've got to let it go, right?
Right.
And then there are longer term problems that we all have and that we all go through, like stress from maybe losing a job or a parent getting sick or your own illnesses, or there are long-term things. And so sometimes when I'm using this method or process, I have to force myself to choose, is this a Tuesday problem or is this a long-term problem? And so sometimes as I'm going through something really rough that's going to take a minute to resolve, I'll journal it, then I'll journal it again. And then for the next date, I'll put both of those journal entries because I want to see how I've evolved through that exact problem. And then, it sometimes takes, 2 or 3 or 5 journal entries. That's been the longest I've seen, though. It almost always resolves by then. And you sort of look back and go, gosh, all of that wasted angst that could have been energy I was using to, take care of homeless dogs.
Absolutely. But again, it connects back to the story, doesn't it? It's like we get in this loop sometimes. I find myself just continuing to replay the same challenge over and over and over.
And then you don't learn from it.
That journaling would help you get out of that loop, help you get out of that story, help you to see the story that you're telling.
That's the other rule with my journaling method. I have rules, but the other rule with my journaling method is you're not allowed to worry about that. Like, you've put a date on the calendar that you're going to worry about that again. You're not going to forget. And so it frees you to not have to stay up all night or go for a long angsty run or you're not allowed to worry about it because you've planned a time to worry about it. And so it almost frees you to sort of let that go.
Yes. Well, and I keep thinking too, that future version of me will figure this out.
Exactly right.
I may not know today what to do. Just this morning, I was thinking about a challenge in my business. And for whatever reason, like right after I had this kind of like, there was this like, it's going to work itself out. Like I don't, in this moment right now, I don't have it solved, but life has shown itself to work itself out. So
that's exactly right. What it has allowed me to do, because I get kind of angsty, like I get anxious, and it's allowed me to, over time and experience, sort of realize, okay, like that time and energy that I've spent working through things, and they worked out the way they were supposed to and going to, whether I had spent all that energy or not. So let's just not spend that energy.
Absolutely. So might as well spend it on something more productive. Right. So cool. Well, I know another thing that is a practice for you that gets at the human being that you're with is asking questions. When we were together recently, you were sharing just some great questions that you ask that get people thinking about aspects of themselves. Two of the questions that you shared that I really liked is you ask people, what would you do with a public platform? And I know you ask people, would you rather be coached by Tony Dungy or Bobby Knight?
It's super fun. So the public platform gets to your values. If you had a public platform, how would you use it? And it tells me everything I need to know about like who you are, what you value, like really where you would spend your time if you didn't have to make other choices. And so for me, if I had a public platform, I really would help homeless pets. Like I absolutely would. I also volunteer at the Humane Society. I've got a rescue dog at home. But I think when you ask people, what would you do with a public platform? It's a different answer than, like what I'm posting on Facebook or what I'm posting on Instagram, because that's just what you do when you're filling in your time. But what would you do with a public platform really gets to sort of the heart and the values that people have. And I love people thinking about that and really processing for themselves how they would use it. And then the Bobby Knight, Tony Dungy is a little dated. Like not everyone even knows them or has been coached by them. But when I ask that question, almost always, someone will come back and be, oh, Tony Dungy, hands down. Like that's me. Like I get coached by Tony Dungy. Like he's such a good guy. He's so kind. He cares about his people. Like you see him hug football players, sorry. So you see him like hug the people that he's coaching, and he becomes this mentor and this father figure and such a good friend and a nice guy. And you have him over for picnics, right? And so of course I'd prefer to be coached by Tony Dungy. But the truth is you have to sort of think internally and reflectively about what brings out the best in you. Like my best mentors at work haven't been always people who are like, way to go, kid. Well done. Like you rocked that. I'm constantly saying, what's better next time? How do I improve that? If that's true for you and you want someone else to say, sure, tell me what's good. Yeah, thanks. And then say, and wow, this is what makes that better. You might be a Bobby Knight kind of coach kid. And that's okay. Like I want someone saying, you did great. Do it better next time. Or if you're in a race, get that one. Get the next 3 too. Go, go, go. And so it could be that you're more motivated by someone who's like warm and caring and kind and, gets invited to your barbecues on the weekend. I actually, as I reflected on that question, I'm probably more motivated by someone who's a little harder on me. Now, I don't want chairs thrown at me, or please don't cuss at me or like yell super loud. I don't want to cry, but I do want someone who expects more from me and pushes me harder in a way that makes me know that I'm going to have to grind. I need grit. I need to be scrappy. I need to like really work through this. And so I think asking that question, it sort of gets to your initial response as well. Everyone wants someone like kind and gentle. But then if you really think about who you are, you actually might get to a different answer.
Yeah, it's good. I had a colleague that showed up to a team meeting one time with a t-shirt on that said, I'm not for everyone. And I loved that so much. And the connection to the Tony Dungy, Bobby Knight question is different leadership strengths support different people at different times in different ways. I mean, I can think of times in my life when Tony Dungy's style would be more helpful other times in my life when Bobby Knights, I needed a kick in the ass. I needed, a much more focused approach. And so isn't that, I mean, it encourages each of us to really think about our strengths and how we're using them. And also that we're not going to be what everybody needs all of the time.
And we don't have to. We shouldn't be. I say this all the time. Not everyone is going to love working with me. I'm a flavor of leader. And I think when you're young in your career, you need to experience lots of different flavors because you both need to see how you thrive and you need to figure out what kind of leader you're going to be. So you have to see lots and lots of different styles. But I can't work for everyone and everyone can't work for me either because I have this very specific leadership style. And that has to be okay. I'm not just going to sort of plop into some vanilla workplace and be super effective. Who you work with and who you work for matters. And what they can bring out in you matters too.
Absolutely. It's been fun as we have kids about the same age. I know Drew is in Denver.
Just turned 20.
20, you said. Mason is in Cleveland, and my daughter Mason, and she's 22. So hasn't it been interesting to see them connect with leaders and their challenges and frustrations and hear their highlights? And it's like, oh yeah, you are learning right now.
I have a daughter who's 22 also, Margot. She's going to grad school in the fall. But all of their life so far has been like almost immediate feedback. You probably had this with Mason. If they would take a test and not get the results back for 2 weeks, they're like, what is the teacher doing?
Torture.
Talk about freezing a teacher in place.
Absolutely. I want to right now.
What are you doing? Grocery shopping? And I turned a test in, right? Like, right? Like what could be more important right this minute? But when I think about it, like our kiddos coming out, like they're used to immediate feedback. They get grades at the end. They know exactly how they're doing. And they know in comparison to everyone who's in that cohort they've been placed in. And then we put them in the workforce and they're working on projects. They're working on project teams. A lot of their feedback comes from people who aren't their leader, who are working in a project with them.
Absolutely.
And they're figuring out what's my work style? What's my role in this work group? And does that work role have to be the same everywhere I go? Or is that just my role in this group? And so going through this with young kids just coming into the workforce and then translating that, I find myself all the time going, oh, this 22-year-old I'm talking to is someone's baby. They wouldn't like that. But they are, and they've got a lot of growth and maturity and experience. They're right where little Andrea and little Louonna were. We were 22, right? Sort of fascinating.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it is. And just how the world has evolved and changed since we came into the workforce. And Mason is in a healthcare environment. And so very different culture or different expectations than the corporate world that I grew up in. And we have a lot of conversations about leadership, and she has very high expectations because her mom has been a leadership coach and she's been on the podcast. But I think that's good. So I'm always encouraging her with your span of control, how can you model the things? How can you communicate what you want and need and to make that happen? I think any environment we go into, there's always opportunity.
I do the same thing. I talk about how to influence where you are. And so like, what are the most important things that you need to influence and what do you need to allow to influence you? So sort of thinking about where's your spot in the organization and then what makes the most impact for your growth and for furthering the organization, like that day and then that week and then that month. And then it sort of builds into this reputation and brand for you that allows you to build a career.
As you look back, so you have led within lots of organizations. You've led operations, you've led talent and HR. What if there's one thing that you could go back and tell little Louonna, what would that be?
You're enough. So it's super interesting, right? Like I've been reflecting on that kid, little Louonna. I've been reflecting on her. And it's funny, like I've heard people say, oh, like, don't worry so much. This works out, etc. You don't know what lever will break her, right? Like what if I didn't have all that angst? What if I didn't have all of that drive? What if I didn't have all of that competition? And what if I had gone back and said, relax, this works out fine. And then she just took a 34-year nap or whatever. That'd be terrible, right? So she wouldn't have.
She wouldn't have.
I can be pretty influential. But what I would say to her is, your instincts are good. You're super smart. You're really driven. You care about people, and in kind, people care about you, and you lead with empathy. And so you've got everything that you need. Don't be so hard on yourself and just go crush it. I would say, look, no dream is too big. You can knock down any door that you need to, and you're going to build yourself to a spot where this all works out great. But don't slow down. Like, keep going. Keep it up.
Don't take a nap. Oh my gosh. Well, I think she followed that advice, because look at you now. Yeah, you have had so much impact. I've had conversations with people who have been part of your team and been so inspired, and you connect. You definitely see the people within your team and your organization. And the stories you shared with us today definitely highlight that.
One of my biggest joys is watching people succeed afterwards, and watching sort of move on to something else and then take that to a larger platform and be able to make impact and influence and really thrive and build lives on their own. Like, it's been one of the joys of my career, is to watch other people grow and expand and continue to just create these amazing opportunities. It's been good.
Yeah. Well, you set people up and you put them in a position to do that. So it's all part of the system. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your journey. Thank you for sharing these great stories.
Super good to see you. I appreciate it.
And it's always so good to see you. What are you excited about the rest of 2025? Like, what are some of your highlights, the things you're looking forward to?
So looking at work specifically, we just got a new CEO. He's amazing. We're doing this huge restructure. There's some fear in the organization. I'm excited and I have a lot of energy around it. I'm really, really excited to see sort of how EnerSys thrives and moves and how that culture gets changed and shifted. And he cares about the whole organization, of course, and he cares about the stakeholders, but he really cares about each individual in a really great way. And so super excited to see what EnerSys has in front of us. Go EnerSys. Personally, lots of change. I mean, Drew's in Colorado doing his first internship, so he's been gone all summer. Margot's leaving for grad school in the fall. And it's been interesting. I've got energy around seeing her go, but I'm not sad, which is actually a little surprising to me. When she went to college, I probably cried for a week. And now as she's going to grad school, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's making dreams come true, right? It felt like college was the next step. And now it feels like these are the choices that she's making beyond that. And just seeing who she's growing into is amazing. So
where is she going to grad school?
She's going in New York City. She's going to Toro.
Oh my gosh. Good for her. Congratulations.
I'm just thrilled for her.
Yeah, I mean, it's next adventure. So you're excited for her.
So excited for her. I mean, I'm going to miss her.
But now you'll have, from Denver to New York. So are you going to be traveling a lot?
A lot, right? I'll get frequent flyer miles. I haven't spent a lot of time in either, so really looking forward to it. It couldn't more match my kiddos' personalities either, like Margot in New York and Drew in Denver. It's just sort of wild, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. There is something so special about seeing them go and spread their wings, and I love it. I am loving being the parent of an adult.
Same.
I've been reflecting on that. Every phase is really interesting and cool, and it brings a new set of challenges.
Yeah.
But I'm liking this phase a lot.
What's been interesting for me is how much they value one another and how close they are. So different from each other, but their relationship and sort of how they interact and how caring they are, and how I feel like for Drew, Margot's the female in his life who can sort of help him navigate relationships and friendships and et cetera. And for Margot, Drew's just a constant, steady, sort of logical, linear thinker. And so he just breaks things down so easy. And so watching the two of them develop their adult relationship has been such a gift. Just seeing how much they count on each other.
It's really great. I can only imagine how that must make you feel. Like this, so warm-hearted, so good.
It's what I want for them, right?
Absolutely.
They've had each other from the beginning, and I love how much they rely on and care about one another.
Yeah, that's really great. Well, I appreciate the personal and the professional insights, and always good to see you. So thank you. If our listeners want to connect with you, Louonna, where can they find you?
I'm on LinkedIn, so everyone should try to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yes, most definitely. Well, thank you, my friend. Grateful for you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. Let's connect to go a bit deeper. How can I help you? Looking for an executive coach, a facilitator for a team or leader engagement, or a high energy, heartfelt speaker? Learn more and connect with me through our website at abundantempowerment.com. I look forward to co-creating something magical with you.